Writing formulas for ionic compounds. So we learned to predict some of the charges that ions have based on their position in the periodic table. Groups 1A, 2A, 3A of the metals have charges of what? 1, 2, and 3, positive. The group number tells you their charge. And for the nonmetals, we just count backwards from the noble gas row. Row 8, those don't make ions at all. Those are 0. And then you count back -1, -2, -3. And that's how you predict charges from the periodic table. So in an ionic compound, you have to have a positive and a negative ion so that they're attracted to each other. And they will combine in a way that their charges all add up to 0. So if you have a +1 ion and a -1 ion, they'll come together, and overall it'll have 0 charge because +1 plus -1 equals 0. If you have a +2 with a -1, it's going to take 2 of the -1s to add up to 0, and so they'll combine in that way. So when we're writing formulas for ionic compounds, these are the steps. They might not make a lot of sense, but we'll go through examples and hopefully it'll get clearer. So the first thing to do is write the symbol for both ions, including their charges. The charge is very important because that's going to tell you how many of each you need. Then we make the magnitude of the charge on each ion without the sign become the subscript for the other. This is called the crisscross method. It's kind of a cheating method, but it works like 95% of the time, and that's pretty good. Okay, there are other ways to do it as well, but that's the one that most of my students prefer. Then you need to look at the subscripts you've ended up with, and sometimes you need to reduce them. Like if you end up with a 2 on both of them, we want the lowest ratio for ionic compounds, and so you have to reduce that. Then double check your work. Make sure that the sum of the charges of the cations cancels the sum of the charges of the anions. So let's look at how we do this. So here we're told, write a formula for the ionic compound that forms from aluminum and oxygen. So the first thing we do is we write the symbol for an aluminum ion. Aluminum is Al. It's in group 3A on the periodic table, so we know that its charge is 3+. Oxygen has the symbol O, and if we look at the periodic table, neon is 0, fluorine has a -1 charge, oxygen has a -2 charge. So that's O2-. So we can take this 3 and bring it down here as the subscript on the oxygen, and take this 2 and bring it down here as the subscript on the aluminum. That's the crisscross part. Crisscross, right? And then we should double check. Let me just show you a couple other ways of thinking about this. If you are a math person, what we're looking for is the least common multiple. So we look at aluminum is 3+ and oxygen is 2-. And what is the smallest number that has 2 and 3 as factors? 6. So that tells us we're going to have +6 charge and -6 charge. And so I'm going to write Al, to get 6 out of 3, I have to multiply by 2. And to get 6 from 2, I have to multiply by 3. Okay, so that makes sense to some people. And then there's more of a visual method. So I've got my 2 columns here, and I'm just going to add up the charges. So I'm going to start with 1 of each, and over here I've got +3, and over here I have -2. I need those to be equal. I need +3 and -3, or +2 and -2, or something like that. You can't take charges away, you can only add more. So I don't have enough negative charge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another oxygen. Well, oops. That gives me a total of -4, right? Now I have too many negatives, I'll have to add an aluminum. And so that total changes. Now I've got plus 6 over here. You see what I'm doing? It's like, well, we seem to be going around in circles. Just keep at it. So now I'm short on the negatives, so I'm going to go another oxygen. And now, finally, they balanced out. I've got plus 6 and minus 6. So there's 3 methods of combining ions to form a compound. Use the one that makes sense to you. If none of those make sense to you, talk to me in lab because I have some other ways of thinking about it as well. Magnesium and oxygen. We find magnesium on the periodic table. It's in group 2A. It's got a 2+ charge. There's our friend oxygen. Now here, these slides are from the textbook, and so they say, well, crisscross and then look at the numbers. What I would do, what I recommend is look at these. So this is plus 2 and minus 2. Well, those are already fine, right? They're going to add up to 0. Just push those 2 guys together and call it good. So if they're the same, then but opposite in sign, you just need one of each. But what your book says is go ahead and crisscross, but then look at these. 2 to 2 is at the lowest ratio. No, it's not. It's like the fraction 2 over 2. And your math teacher would say you need to reduce that, right? That would be 1 over 1 if you have to write it as a fraction. And so the correct answer is MgO. This is one of the examples where the crisscross thing, if you're not paying attention, could get you into trouble. But if you just look at the signs, look at the numbers, if they're the same, don't bother with the crisscross. You don't need it. Write a formula for the compound that forms from calcium and bromine. What's the symbol for calcium? Ca. And what group is it in the periodic table? In group 2A, so its charge is 2+. What's the symbol for bromine? Br. What charge is a bromine ion going to have? -1. And so we just write the minus sign because chemists don't like to write the number 1. Periodic table, krypton is 0, bromine is -1, 1 to the left. So we look at these charges. +2, -1, are those the same? No. So we're going to crisscross. Take this down here, and this unwritten 1 becomes an unwritten 1 on the other. So we're going to end up with CaBr2. Or look at Ca2 plus Br minus 1. Here I've got +2 and -1. I need another one of these to balance the charge. I've got 2 of these guys and 1 of those guys. Any questions? This is important. Some of the stuff I'll tell you, yeah, you could probably skip that if you had to. But this is going to get you if you don't understand it. And it's going to snowball from here. So make sure you understand this today. Nomenclature, new section.